Hello. In this video we're going to talk a little bit about setting up your tutor room. When you first log in, you'll be greeted with a screen kind of like this. Go ahead and hit the Start Meeting button, and it'll log you into your room. I'm going to go ahead and close this little sidebar here. We don't really need it. Gives us a little more screen space to work with. You can see that this room is already set up. We have a notes pod, informs the student of what to do when they log in, the tutor's hours, some contact information, and a reposting of the meeting room policy. We have a file share pod, and we have the attendees pod here at the bottom. This one will let you know who's in the room and their current status. In this room we see that the tutor is logged in and is a host. When students log in, they'll normally enter as participants, which have limited access to control some of these pods. For instance, a participant can't upload a file, and a participant won't be able to do things like alter what's on these notepads. They will be able to use the chat box. You can get started with them and upgrade their status as needed. Across the top, you see quite a few buttons. The meeting tab gives you all sorts of options there. You can end the meeting. You can have a special area just for presenters. In this case, that would be other tutors. You can switch to a preparation mode if you like. You can record the meeting that's happening in progress, including any audio, microphones, things like that that's happening in the room. You can set up audio for the room, change the preferences, change your current role, manage access at entry. This one you'll probably want to adjust. You can invite people, you can block guest access. The two most interesting ones will be auto-promoting participants to presenters, which means that when students enter your room, they'll automatically be upgraded to a presenter status instead of participant. Therefore, they can then use their microphone, they could use the whiteboards, they could use the file shares, and so on. You don't have to upgrade individual students each time. You could place them on hold if you need to. And block incoming attendees is an interesting one. Let's go ahead and disable it, and we'll show you what happens when you first access it. It'll pop up with a little window. You can let anyone who wants to get into the room, they won't be able to log in right away, but they can request entry. We'll show you what that means in just a second. You can also give them a message to show while they're waiting. In this case, we ask them to please wait and tell them what to do once they are logged in. In this case, provide the information you'll need for your shift report. And again, we repost the meeting room policy so they can review it while they wait. You can save the message and just alter it here without doing anything else, or we can just go ahead and hit OK and it'll apply it. And now you see this flashing over here. This little info pod here will tell you that we are auto-promoting participants. We could turn that off here as well as over here. And it'll inform us that we are currently blocking incoming attendees. We could change that message if we want to from here, or we could stop blocking entirely. Now, as we saw before, blocking doesn't stop them from accessing the room entirely. It only stops them from immediately joining. What will happen is they'll be greeted with a little screen where they can request entry, and once they do so, they'll be shown the message that we've saved, and you'll get a little pop-up window very similar to this, except it'll have their name on it, and it'll say allow or deny them access. Once you hit allow, then they'll enter the room and drop into the attendees pod just like you are now. Now, what other pods do we have available? Well, we have a share pod, which in this case you can get either a whiteboard-like scenario. You can draw text on it, draw pictures if you need something visual, maybe for a graph of math, something like that. You can choose to make this full screen, stop sharing entirely, do all sorts of things. You can go to the edges, resize it if you need to. And you'll notice that all the pods have these little icons in the corner. And what these will do is give you pod-specific options. In the case of our whiteboard, we can hide it, make it larger, print it, lots of other things. But if we go to share, we can share it as either a whiteboard like it is currently. We could share a document if we wanted to display a Word document, for instance. We could also share our screen or allow the student to share their screen. It'll go ahead and ask us if we want to install plugins and whatever it needs for that. We'll go ahead and hide that for now. The attendees pod, again, we can hide it, make it larger, edit information on it, change views on it, different things like that. But if you highlight a user's name, you can see that first it offers us different options for changing their status. So if we had a student who was a participant, we could go ahead and make them a presenter, giving them microphone access and so on, as we discussed. And then if you ever need to, You can remove the selected user from your room from this point as well. And what other pods do we have? We talked about the share pod. The notes we've seen here, it just brings up a nice little text box that we can work in. The attendees pod is already checked as it's open down there. Again, notes is checked because we have one displayed currently. We can bring up a video, show clips. Video telephony would be something like Skype. You've got chat, got some chat boxes. We'll go ahead and bring up a chat box. And this is probably going to be your main point of contact with students. It works just as any kind of instant messenger. This one has some options as well. You can start chat with individual groups, clear the chat. You can email it to yourself once there's chat in the box. Change the text size to suit your color that appears when you type. You can show the timestamps if you'd like, and change other preferences as well. The files, we saw that one as a file share. This allows students to upload their files, and then once uploaded, it'll occur in each line of here. Then once that's done, you can select it and hit Save to My Computer. It'll open up another window, and then you can download it and use it from there whenever you need to share projects, things like that with students. Web links, you can add that in, and it'll allow you to go ahead and add links to different websites, and then you could have a little repository of useful information for the students. Polls, if you wanted to ask them maybe about an upcoming workshop you plan on hosting and what they might like to see in that. It'll give you, a question you can pose and let them answer. We also have it checked so that we can move and resize pods. We saw that a little bit with the screen share, but again, we could do that with the chat, for instance. We could resize it and so on to suit ourselves. And while we can manage it somewhat from that pods window, if we go into the manage pods part of that, it'll actually show us all of the pods that currently exist in this room, as well as the names that have been given to them. We can go in, we can delete them, rename them, and so on. Now the interesting thing about managing those pods is while you can go up here and you can say, oh, another student joined, I need to create a new chat. When you get to be on a busy shift, you might want to have those windows readily accessible for yourself. So we notice that in this one we have 4 chat windows named, though currently we're only displaying chat number 3. And that's because we have 4 windows already pre-created, just not shown at the moment. If we go ahead and enable them one at a time, we can see that as a student would log in, we can have a new window readily available for them simply by clicking the name of the window that we need. Now, as we go, we might have some students log out. We can go ahead and hide portions of this again and go ahead and recall them from the pods window when we're ready for them again. Or maybe we need something different. Maybe we're down to 2 students and we need some notes to show or display a program, something to that nature. We can go ahead and we have a pre-created whiteboard over here. We can go ahead and resize it. And now we'd be able to chat with 2 students while we're sharing something on a whiteboard. And perhaps we need a whiteboard for each student. They're working on something entirely different or unrelated. We can go ahead and we have another one pre-created up here. And so what you can do when you're setting up your room is you can go ahead and just create these pods as you want. And as we saw, I don't have a Q&A pod pre-created. So if I select one now, it comes up in a rather obnoxious place. But we can go ahead and resize it. Maybe we want it to be down here normally. And we want it to just take up half of a normal chat spot. So we'll leave it there. Then we can go ahead and we can just hide it. Now, when we recall it, it'll be at that location and that size again. And we can do that with all the various pods that we might want to set up. Think up a little interesting layout for yourselves that would work well with whatever your subject matter is that you're tutoring. And once you have a layout that you're happy with, you can actually save it, create a new one, manage your layouts, rename them, for instance. And that's that layout bar that we saw when we first logged in. We can go ahead and reopen it now. We see that this room only has one layout, and it'll actually update in real time, as we saw, with the changes that are occurring. So whenever you leave the room, it'll remain in the state that you left it. So if you have any text that you were working on, or anything left over by a student, any files that were uploaded, those will still be there for you. But we'll go ahead and close back out of that for now. Let's see what else we have up here. We have our speakers enabled so that if any students were using a microphone, we could hear them. We could make some adjustments from here. We could enable our own microphone. Obviously, this one's being connected for the video now, but we could connect it to the room and talk to the students then. We could do the same with a webcam for those video pods that we discussed. And we have the set status. This one you can allow students to tell you if they need you to speak louder, more softly, if they need you to slow down perhaps, or if they're agreeing in some way. Maybe they're disagreeing. Let's go ahead and raise our hand though, and we'll see down here in the attendees pod, we had our icon, our name, and then we saw the status change. Now once you've handled that issue, you can go ahead and select the student's name and clear the status, and that icon will go away. And finally, we have the meetings area. That one, if you go to manage meeting information, it'll actually bring you to an external website. Now this one, you can manage information about the meeting room, edit participants, invite people, view the uploaded content that's been sent to your file share pods, and so on. But when you were able to go to meeting, record meeting, remember I said it would record everything that's occurring in your room, including the audio. Once you've finished a recording for the session, those will appear in the recordings tab. Currently that's empty as we're between terms, but you can see any audio recordings you make here, edit them, change them, whatever you need to do, submit them for your reports, and so on. You can also edit the preferences for the room. That's where you can upload a background image like we have here. You can decide if you want to show your mouse cursor to anyone who joins or just other tutors perhaps. You can change the bandwidth of the room. If you're having trouble with students not being able to stay connected, or a lot of lag time in their responses, things like that, you might want to turn the room bandwidth down. We have it set rather high since we're doing a lot of programming work in this room, but you know, LAN or modem might be better choices. LAN would be the fastest choice that you have. We've kind of opted for a medium one here, but you can change display names. You can change audio, so if you're having issues with audio, if you're getting feedback from their speakers and so on, you could use echo suppression, things like that. Video, again, if you're having trouble with bandwidth in the room, while the bandwidth settings will help a lot, you can also turn down the quality of the video. That will definitely help as well. Same thing with screen share quality. You can decide what you want to do with the attendees. Chat pod, you can allow them to enable a private chat, so maybe a student wants to talk to you and not have it be seen by the other students or whoever's in the room. You could do that. You could also set, chat notification times. And then you can also show names if you'd like on the Q&A pod. And then finally, on the audio settings, you could enable a single speaker mode, which would be only one person is allowed audio, which is likely to be you when you're giving a presentation. There's many students in the room and you don't want to avoid interruptions there. You can also enable microphone rights for participants by default, so when they log in, any student would be able to instantly hop on the mic if they so wished. I have it set so basically they're automatically upgraded beyond that, so I don't have this checked, but if you're not upgrading them automatically to presenters, then you might want to go up to audio and enable it for participants as well. Well, that does it for setting up your meeting room. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, remember you can always feel free to drop into other tutors' rooms or ask the Learning Services Coordinator. Thank you.